Families aren't always warm and welcoming. I married the love of my life. Kind, patient, supportive. But from the moment I joined his family, one person made it very clear I didn't belong. His sister, Clara. Clara smiled to my face but whispered behind my back. She dropped passive-aggressive comments during dinners, rolled her eyes when I spoke, and always found a way to bring up how fast our relationship moved. But the worst part. One night, she got drunk and called me a gold digger. In front of the entire family. Everyone froze. My husband stood up for me, of course, but the damage was done. Clara didn't apologize. If anything, she smirked like she was proud of herself. And that's when I knew I wasn't going to argue with her. I was going to teach her a lesson. A quiet, strategic, unforgettable lesson. Love stories about getting even without losing your cool? This one's for you. Like, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe for more real-life revenge tales. It was supposed to be a simple dinner. Just family. Pasta, wine, catching up. My in-laws hosted, and everyone was there. My husband, his parents, Clara, her fiancé James, and me. Things started fine. But as always, Clara found a way to ruin it. First, she joked about how I never brought wine to family dinners. Then she commented on the brand of my purse, loudly. But I kept smiling. I had learned to let it roll off. Until dessert. We were all seated, laughing about something James had said, when Clara raised her glass and clinked it too hard. I just want to say, she slurred slightly, I'm glad my brother found love. Even if it's with someone who knows how to pick her wallets. The table went silent. I blinked. Sorry. What? Oh, don't act like you didn't hear me, she said, smirking. It's just a joke. My husband's face went red. Clara. Enough. She shrugged, unbothered. I mean, come on. We all know she didn't exactly marry for personality, right? My in-laws looked horrified. James tried to laugh it off. But me. I said nothing. Because I knew exactly what I was going to do. Clara was always obsessed with appearances. She posted designer bags and champagne on Instagram, but lived in a small condo she could barely afford. She bragged about connections, but secretly borrowed money from her parents. Her whole life was one big carefully arranged photo. And that was her weakness. Perception. She needed to look like she was winning. So I decided to make her feel like she wasn't. First, I got closer to her fiancé, James. Not in a flirty way, just friendly, polite. I asked him questions. Complimented his career. Made him laugh. He started greeting me with a warm hug instead of a stiff handshake. Clara noticed. Then I accidentally donated to one of her charity events, and got publicly thanked for being the top donor. She had only contributed $100. I gave $500. Clara noticed. At the next family gathering, I wore a dress nearly identical to one she'd posted online as her birthday outfit reveal. She hadn't even worn it yet. She stared at me the whole night like I'd robbed her closet. Clara definitely noticed. But this was only the beginning. Because the lesson wouldn't just be about discomfort. It would be about exposure. Clara had always controlled the narrative. She told people what to think, how to feel, who was in and who was out. But I was done letting her dictate the story. So I planted a seed. At brunch with my mother-in-law, I dropped it casually. It's strange. Clara's always been kind of cold with me. I've tried everything. I hope it's not because she thinks I'm married for money. I mean, she did say something that night at dinner. My mother-in-law's face fell. She didn't mean it, she said quickly. I just smiled. Of course not. That was all I had to do. The next time I saw Clara, she was clearly irritated, cold, distant. But now, her own family had started watching her more closely. Noticing the digs, the tone, the controlling behavior. And then, I struck. I organized a surprise party for my husband's birthday. I invited everyone, including Clara, and went out of my way to make it tasteful, kind, and inclusive. I gave her a special role, MC. She declined, saying she was too busy. So I gave it to James instead. He was charming, warm, funny. Everyone loved him. And in the middle of the party, I noticed something incredible. Clara watching him. Watching me. Realizing, maybe for the first time, she wasn't the center anymore. Clara didn't like losing attention. After the birthday party, she went quiet. Too quiet. Her Instagram turned up a notch. Flashy dinners, tagged locations, stories about business meetings, and VIP access. But offline, she was cold. Passive-aggressive texts. Missing family events. Ignoring my messages completely. Then, she made her move. She called my husband. She didn't know I was in the room when he picked up. I heard every word. "Hey, just checking in. I don't want to start anything, but have you ever wondered why your wife's always around James? I mean, they seem very close. It's probably nothing. But I'd be careful." My husband stared at the phone in disbelief. When she hung up, he turned to me. "Did she seriously just try to start something between us?" I smiled. Of course she did. I knew what she was trying to do. Create tension. Make me look like the manipulator. But instead of defending myself or lashing out, I leaned in. "I think it's time we show everyone who the real manipulator is." He nodded. It was time to let Clara dig her own grave. We planned it carefully. The next family event was their parents' anniversary, a big garden party with extended relatives. Clara would be there, of course. So would James. So would everyone who needed to witness what came next. I made sure to stay close to James, but in a very specific way, visible, but not inappropriate. I laughed at his jokes. Asked about his new work project. Genuinely listened. Every time Clara looked over, I could see the jealousy brewing. And then I did something bold. I invited James to partner with me on organizing a silent auction for charity, a cause Clara claimed to care about but had never truly supported. He was flattered and immediately said yes. Clara found out the same day. Her reaction. She posted a passive-aggressive tweet about social climbers pretending to care about causes just to get close to people they shouldn't. Then she texted my husband again. This time in all caps. "I told you something was going on." That was the moment I had been waiting for. Because what she didn't know was that I had recorded every one of our interactions, public and respectful, and I had screenshots of her online tirades, all timestamped and tied to key events. And just like that, the final piece of the puzzle was in place. The night of the anniversary party arrived. Everyone was there. Dozens of family members, family friends, and neighbors. Clara arrived late, wearing a dress so flashy it looked like she was headed to a red carpet event, not a backyard celebration. She didn't greet me. Didn't greet her brother. But she greeted James, with a kiss on the cheek and a sharp glare in my direction. Then, as expected, she made her move. She waited until I was alone near the drinks table. Walked up with a fake smile and said loudly, "You're getting a little too comfortable with James, don't you think?" I turned slowly. People nearby turned too. I tilted my head. "Comfortable? We're working on a fundraiser together. I thought you supported the cause." She scoffed. "You've always been good at playing innocent." I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out my phone. "Do you want to see what James thinks about that?" I said. "Or what you've been texting about me behind my back?" She went pale. "Don't worry," I continued. "You don't have to defend yourself to me. But you might want to explain to your parents why you've been trying to sabotage your brother's marriage." People were watching now. And Clara. She had nothing to say. Just silence. The kind of silence that tells the whole story. The moment hung in the air. Clara's smirk had vanished. Her hands trembled slightly, clutching her purse like it could anchor her to something solid. But it couldn't. Because the room was no longer hers. My husband stepped forward and said, in front of everyone, "We've seen the messages, Clara. Every one of them. You've been lying, manipulating, and insulting my wife behind her back, and mine." Clara's face went red. "I was just trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" he cut in. "From the woman I chose to marry? From someone who's been nothing but respectful while you tried to tear her down?" Silence again. This time heavier. Then his father, quiet and steady, spoke from across the yard. "We raised you better than this, Clara." Her mother nodded solemnly beside him. Clara blinked rapidly. "You're all taking her side?" "No," her mother said gently. "We're just done pretending you haven't been cruel." Clara looked at James, desperate for a lifeline. But even he took a step back. "I don't know what happened to you," he said, "but this isn't the woman I proposed to." Clara didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just turned and walked away. And for the first time since I'd met her, she was truly alone. The fallout wasn't loud. It was quiet. Subtle. Permanent. Clara didn't show up to any family events for weeks. She stopped replying to texts. Unfollowed half the family on social media. Even James moved out of her condo, not officially breaking up, but taking time, as he put it. Meanwhile, my relationship with the family deepened. I was invited to help plan the next family reunion. My mother-in-law sent me a bracelet, just because. Even Clara's older cousin reached out to say, "We always liked you. We just didn't know how much she resented you." But I didn't gloat. Because revenge wasn't about rubbing it in. It was about clarity. About setting the record straight without screaming. About letting the truth rise above the noise. And Clara's lies? They were finally quiet. Still, I had one last thing to do. Not to hurt her, but to remind her that I had never been the gold digger she claimed I was. And that lesson was going to be delivered with grace. It happened at a charity gala, one Clara had once claimed to be too busy to attend. James invited me and my husband as his guests. It was his company's annual fundraiser, and he was now on the board. Clara wasn't on the guest list. But she showed up anyway, dressed to kill. Eyes scanning the room. She spotted us across the floor, laughing with the CEO, sipping champagne. We looked strong. Unbothered. Unified. She tried to approach James, but he politely excused himself. Then she came to me. "Enjoying the spotlight," she said under her breath. I smiled. "You know what I'm enjoying? Being respected." She scoffed. "You think this changes anything?" I leaned in slightly. "It already has. And the funny thing is, Clara, I didn't have to destroy you. I just had to let you show everyone who you really are." Before she could reply, the host tapped the mic and announced the top donor of the night, my husband and me. Clara froze. We didn't look at her. We just stood, smiled, waved. Because the best revenge is living well in the very space someone tried to push you out of. Clara stopped trying after that night. She didn't approach us again. Didn't try to explain, or fight back, or even fake an apology. She simply vanished from our social circles like a ghost, present only through occasional updates passed along by others. "She's quiet these days," her cousin said at a family brunch. "She and James are on a break," another relative whispered. She had become what she feared most, irrelevant. Meanwhile, life moved on, for all of us. My husband got a promotion. I launched a small business I'd been dreaming of for years. Support from his family came in waves, shout-outs, orders, referrals. Clara's accusations seemed more absurd than ever now. But even with everything going well, I couldn't help but remember the sting from that first insult. Gold digger. It had stuck with me longer than it should have. Not because it was true, but because it was said by someone who thought they could get away with it. And for a while, she had. Not anymore. One afternoon, months later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello," I said. There was silence on the other end. Then a familiar voice. "It's Clara." I waited. "I just wanted to say," she paused. "I know things got out of hand. I shouldn't have said what I said." Still, I waited. No, I'm sorry. No real accountability. Just a vague attempt at peace without the burden of guilt. "I hope we can just move on," she added. I finally replied, calm and even. "I already have." And I hung up. Because forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about your own peace. And I wasn't going to hand her closure that easily. The final phase of revenge wasn't about revenge at all. It was about thriving. My business grew. We bought a new home, bigger, brighter, in a better neighborhood. I was invited to speak at panels, asked to mentor young entrepreneurs. My name, once whispered in suspicion, was now associated with success, generosity, and grace. Even people from Clara's circle, her former friends, her ex-colleagues, started following me online, asking for collaborations, sharing my work. I never mentioned Clara. Not once. Because when people live in bitterness, they become their own punishment. And when you rise above it, quietly, consistently, with integrity, you become untouchable. The girl she called a gold digger was now someone she couldn't even reach. And that, more than any dramatic downfall, was the sweetest ending of all. 6 months later, my husband's family planned a reunion, a long weekend at a rented beach house. Everyone was going, even extended cousins I hadn't seen in years. And yes, Clara would be there too. I hesitated. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I didn't know if it was worth the energy. My husband left the choice to me. "You don't have to prove anything," he said. "But if you do come, don't go for them. Go for you." I agreed. We arrived early. I helped set up the patio. My mother-in-law hugged me tightly. People laughed, music played, and kids ran barefoot across the deck. The atmosphere was warm, genuine. Then Clara arrived. She was thinner, quieter, dressed in something low-key for once. She barely made eye contact with anyone. No spotlight. No show. And for the first time, I didn't feel anything toward her. No bitterness. No sting. Just a quiet understanding that she had already lost the one thing she valued most: control. That night, during dinner, my husband gave a small toast thanking everyone for their support over the past year, especially me. Everyone clapped. Even Clara. Later that evening, Clara approached me on the balcony. The moon was out. The sound of waves filled the silence between us. "I meant to say," she began, "your business, it's impressive." I nodded. "Thank you." She looked down, then back at me. "You probably think I'm the worst person alive." I stayed quiet. She sighed. "I was insecure. I was losing everything, and when you came along, graceful, loved, successful, I hated it. I thought you'd replace me." I finally looked at her. "You didn't need to be replaced, Clara. You just needed to grow." She swallowed hard. "I know. It wasn't an apology. Not fully. But it was the closest she'd ever come. And I was okay with that. Not because she had earned my forgiveness, but because I had already let go." A year after that beach trip, something happened. Clara reached out again, not to me, but to my business. She applied for a part-time role. Nothing flashy, just admin work. She wrote in her cover letter, "I'm looking for a fresh start." I stared at her name on the screen. The old me would have laughed, deleted it, shared it with a friend. But I didn't. Instead, I wrote back, "Thank you for applying. At this time, we're moving forward with other candidates. Wishing you the best on your journey. Warm regards." My name. Founder and director. Because the lesson wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about value. Mine. And hers. And sometimes, the greatest lesson you can teach someone is not to humiliate them, but to show them, gracefully, just how far beneath you they once tried to drag you. There's a moment after a storm when everything feels still. Not just quiet, but clean. That's how life felt now. No more drama. No more whispers. Just peace. I hadn't spoken to Clara since I declined her job application. She never followed up. Never responded. And that silence. It didn't bother me. It told me everything I needed to know. She knew the door wasn't just closed, it had been sealed with dignity. But the strange thing is, I still thought about her sometimes. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with a kind of distant sympathy. Because here's the truth Clara never grasped. I never married for money. I married for love, yes, but I also had ambition, drive, and dreams of my own. She thought she could reduce me to a stereotype because it was easier than facing her own fear, that I was building something real while she clung to an illusion. What she never realized was that the power she tried to take from me never belonged to her in the first place. It was always mine. And in trying to belittle me, she only revealed how small her world had become. I still remember the night she called me a gold digger. How I smiled through it. How I chose not to shout, not to break down, but to plot in silence. People think revenge means fire and fury. But sometimes, the best revenge is a full life. A full business. A full marriage. A full heart. A life so abundant, the people who tried to shrink you can't even find space in it anymore. And as for Clara, wherever she is now, I hope she learned something too. Because people like her often live with the same question. Why do people keep leaving me behind? The answer is simple. You can't walk with people you spend your time trying to trip.